Bismillah, alhamdulillah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad and Nabi Ummi wa ala alihi wa sallam taslima. We're going to speak about hadith number 1531. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال. Abu Hurairah رضي الله عنه says that the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم said, أتدرون ما الغيبة? Do you know what is Ghibah? What is Ghibah? Ghibah is backbiting. So do you know what Ghibah is? قالوا الله ورسوله أعلم. Sahaba said, Allah and His Messenger knows best. Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam goes on to explain, ذِكْرُكَ أَخَاكَ بِمَا يَكْرَهُ. Mentioning something about your brother and of course about your sister that person would not like. Kila, so somebody asked the question, أَفْرَأَيْتَ إِنْ كَانَ فِي أَخِي مَا أَقُولُ. What about if what I'm going to say concerning my brother or my sister is true? قال الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم, he says, إِنْ كَانَ فِيهِ مَا تَقُولُ فَقَدْ اِقْتَبَتَّهُ. So Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, if what you are mentioning about him is actually in him, فَقَدْ اِقْتَبَتَّهُ, then certainly اِقْتَبْتَهُ, you have backbitten him. So if what you are saying about a person behind their back is true, then it is backbiting. وَإِن لَّمْ يَكُنْ فِيهِ مَا تَقُولُ فَقَدْ بَهَتَّهُ. And if what you are saying behind that person's back is false, then it is called slander. So slander is worse than backbiting. So it is still a sin. So we are speaking about somebody, about the facts concerning that person, and the person does not like what we are saying. So if the person had heard what we were saying, the person would not have approved, the person would dislike it a lot, the person would consider it an insult. So that is called backbiting. And backbiting is usually the truth, a fact that we are speaking about somebody they don't like to hear. So we are actually defaming that person, we are making others dislike that person, or we are exposing that person's faults. So this is backbiting. If, however, what we are saying about that person is not true, or is doubtful, or cannot be proven, then that is called slandering. So backbiting is already such an evil act. It is such a big sin. Just imagine the weight of slandering, which is worse. Next hadith. وعن أبي بكر رضي عنه. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu says that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, في خطبته يوم النحر بمنى في حجة الوداع. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned this statement in the khutbah on the day of slaughtering in Mina during his farewell pilgrimage. It's a very famous statement. Inna dima'akum wa amwalakum wa aradakum. Certainly your blood, meaning your life, wa amwalakum, and your wealth, your property, wa aradakum, and your character. Haramun alaykum, it is haram, it is sacred. There's a limit that people cannot cross concerning those things. So the blood and the wealth and the character of people, it is haram upon us. We cannot touch those things. We are not allowed to touch another person's blood, another person's life, another person's property, another person's character. We are not allowed to touch those things. كَحُرُمَةِ يَوْمِكُمْ هَذَا. It is haram, it is sacred, like the sacredness of today, which was the day of slaughtering on the Hajjatul Wada. في شهركم هذا. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said or the wealth of Muslims and the blood of Muslims, character of Muslims is sacred upon you, meaning we should treat it with such sanctity just as we treat the day of Eid al-Adha with sanctity, or the month of Dhul Hijjah with sanctity, or fi baladikum hadha, or like the Haram, just as we treat the Haram, Makkah, with sanctity, we should treat the blood, the life, and the wealth, and the character of people with such sanctity. Allah hal balagt. And then Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam asked the question, have I delivered? Have I delivered my message? One more hadith. وعن عائشة رضي عنها قالت, Aisha رضي عنها, the wife of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, she said, قلت للنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, I once mentioned to the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, حسبك من صفية كذا وكذا. وقال بعض الرواة تعني قصيرة. So Aisha radiallahu anha once mentioned to the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that it is enough for you to stay away from Safiya, that she is so and so, meaning she was mentioning some faults about Safiya radiallahu anha, who was another wife of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So there's another wife of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and Aisha radiallahu anha was mentioning some faults and telling the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that it is enough that you should stay away from, or you should dislike Safiya, that she is so and so, and she was mentioning faults. The Rawi, or one narrator, says she was saying that Safiya is short and Safiya is this and that. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said to Aisha, قَدْ قُلْتِ كَلِمَةً لَوْ مُسِجَتْ بِمَا الْبَحْرِ لَمَزَجَتْهُ. قالت وحكيت له إنسانا فقال ما أحب أني حكيت إنسانا وإن لي كذا وكذا. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told Aisha radiallahu anha, you have said such a word about your sister. Of course, she's not the real sister, she's the co-wife of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, of Aisha. So you have said such a word about your sister, your Muslim sister, that if it were to be mixed with the water of the ocean, and if you were to use it to tear up the water of the ocean, it would be able to mix and tear up the water of the ocean. Now, meaning the words of Aisha radiallahu anha was so grave, so great, so destructive, it was enough to be mixed, meaning the sin of that word, the graveness, the harshness of that word, even though it was a small word, if you would take all the oceans of all the world and mix that word with all the oceans, that word will be enough to dilute all the oceans. So the oceans are not going to dilute this word. That will be enough to dilute all the oceans and even dry up all the oceans. And Aisha radiallahu anha then mentioned some other people to the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, as if she was pointing out their faults or speaking about them. And then Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, I would not like that people's faults are mentioned to me, even if I will be given such and such an exchange. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was stopping Aisha radiallahu anha from speaking about people. Now, this gives us a very great lesson, right? This gives us a very great lesson. One, the words of backbiting are so bitter, are so great, that it may be small in our eyes, however it is big in the eyes of Allah and the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is not exaggerating here. The words of backbiting will be so bitter and so great, it could dilute the entire ocean. It is so much in volume, even though it might be one or two words, but it is such a bitter, evil sin, it can be mixed with the entire ocean, and even the entire ocean would not be enough water to wash it off and to dilute it. And it would be able to pollute the entire ocean. So the word of backbiting can pollute all the oceans of the world, just that one backbiting. So that's one thing to think about. Secondly, a lot of the times the people who are beloved to us, people who are close to us, people who are our friends, or even family, spouses, even children, but usually spouses and best friends, it's difficult for us to correct them or to advise them. But Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has given us a practical example how he is advising the most beloved person to him, which is Aisha radiallahu anha. He's advising her, he's correcting her, he's straightening out her mistakes. Great example here for us, and very great lesson for us to learn, inshallah ta'ala. So there's just one hadith, two hadith again to complete the chapter, but we would stop here now, inshallah ta'ala. We would suffice with these few hadith that we have read, inshallah, because let us just ponder on their meaning, and let's see if we can digest them properly and understand the depth of the message in these hadith, inshallah ta'ala. May Allah Ta'ala grant us the ability to understand what was explained here today. May He grant us the ability to practice on it. And may also grant us the tawfiq to take His word to those who are so unfortunate not to be here, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.